Just be aware that we are live. People won't be able to see yet because I'll have this little picture up, but they will be able to
Yeah,
see
so if you want to take your shirts off, the time has
be
passed.
careful
I'm
with
sorry.
your,
Thank you for the warning.
And I just want to say that I noticed that, okay, 2 people did finally sit in the front row. That's how you can tell who your true friends are.
Oh.
No.
No, see. I'm tall. I just was trying to get a break.
Right.
I never sit in the front. 5'10" and above, you sit in the middle of the back.
You've been trained.
We always laugh because, like, no matter how far back we put the first row, no one ever sits in it. I say it's like church. You know?
I'm always afraid to block people. And I straighten my hair, but usually I have a hair like this. I'm like, if you put me in the
You're
front,
just being considerate.
yeah. If I'm in the front row, the whole front. There's only me. There's no one behind me. Oh, yes, I know. I'm not going to do You will not know how many times I've looked yeah. She goes through a lot. You can get another one.
Can you give me another one?
You know, we give out more prizes to people in the front row. I'm just saying.
That's what I
said.
No one ever sits in the front row, no matter how far back we put it.
Yeah, it's true.
Although we did have some people who said they were being polite by not sitting in the front row because they're tall. So.
Okay, that's
We accept that.
fair.
Well, thank you all for coming out this evening to celebrate Ann's new book, What We Harvest. And Ann's going to be in conversation with our very own Amanda Quain. So just
That's the right level for the two of us. It's your day,
So just a quick introduction. Amanda is a writer, indie bookseller, and general life enthusiast. She is very passionate about books, no surprise. And she and Ann met when they worked together at one of their previous jobs, and now they are critique partners. So it is only appropriate that they are here together talking about Ann's new book. And they both have cats, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We often talk about them without editing is too hard. Yes.
Amanda's cat Jenny is often on the Zoom when we have our weekly meeting, so I'm sure your cats help you as well.
Oh, yes.
Ann is an author, playwright, and narrative designer. Her co-author credits include plays such as Romeo and Juliet, Choose Your Own Ending, and alternate reality games sponsored by the National Science Foundation. She's a graduate of NYU Summer Publishing Institute. Sometimes I don't remember how to talk. I used to do this all the time, and now not so much.
NYU is one of the hard ones.
And she was selected for mentorship in Pitch Awards 2018 and 2019. She is from our neck of the woods, born and raised in Maryland, and she lives with her husband and ever adorable cats, Ollie and Sophie. Please join us in welcoming. Yay!
Yeah, you know my everyday sort of enthusiasm gets turned up in these events. So
Great news.
Best of luck. So hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to our page to celebrate our amazing Ann Fraistat and the wonderful What We Harvest. I think we should clap again. I think which most of you probably know about between both Anne and Grant and various other people here. We're very good at being standardized. When we both have ponytails and are wearing hospital gowns, you can't tell us apart on video, which is very helpful for that sort of thing. It's less useful for writing, but it is a skill set we have.
Right.
So I think that's good. And now we are petite partners. So Anne says wonderful things about my very happy, fluffy books, and I do my best to get through the body horror that she puts in books like this. But it's such a joy to work with Anne. She's an amazing writer. Since I've read a couple of her other books, and they're all fabulous, and I'm just so glad. I'm gonna cry at some point tonight. So it's probably better to get it out of the way now. But this is such a great book, and I'm so proud of you. And anyway, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you. So happy book birthday. How are you feeling?
Incredible. I think I'm just taking in everybody here. It's so good to see you all. I think a lot of the steps along this way. This has been such a big dream for so long, and hi internet folks. I'm gonna try to talk to you too.
Yeah. Hello.
Thank you for coming. I think it's been hard for it to feel real. Because of that, and especially it's all been so much online and over the phone, and so to get to be here, actually in the space with you all, to when the book actually came in, I got to touch it. I think today it's finally feeling real, so that's really gratifying.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for the internet folks, and so you all know as well, we are monitoring your comments and your questions. So at the end, when we do that, our amazing Amber will pull those from the internet as well as our IRL friends. So we do know about you, and we care about you, and we're glad you're here.
Okay.
Oh, and there'll be a raffle.
Yes, both in store.
Both
and online.
in store and online. Thank you for these details. I drove 4 hours today, so my brain's a little broken.
You got here.
But,
That
yeah.
was
I got here and I wrote down my questions ahead of time,
Yeah.
so those are important. But yeah, I mean, this is the first time we've seen each other since either of us sold our books.
Yeah.
Which is wild. I have very specific memories of you texting me oh, by the way, I sold my book, and I immediately called you.
Yeah.
It's what?
You're this is not a text.
Yeah. We have a 3-hour conversation about this, at least. So can you tell us, give us our elevator pitch for What We Harvest?
Okay. All right. Well, many of you have read What We Harvest, but it is a YA supernatural thriller. It's about a seemingly idyllic small town, American town, and it's about the mysterious blight that has infected this town. Not only the crops, but also the animals and then the people. And it's also about Ren, our 16-year-old protagonist, who is fighting back for her farm and her family, and and that's tough for her because it also means unearthing the twisted roots of this home that she's always loved. Maybe realizing it doesn't add up to exactly what it seemed.
Miracles are never free.
Miracles are never free.
A great tagline. I feel we'd have a better sense of the book if you read something from it though.
Okay.
Maybe we could manage it. Yeah, it's a segue. I wasn't segue tour guide, so I'm pretty good at that. So. This is the most challenging part of our friendship that I make a lot of fun and Anne hates all of them. So. Can you do a reading?
Yes, I would love to do a reading.
Another clap. Let's get ready.
Okay, and sappy thing I have to say is that I think when I was little and I pictured, having a book and being an author and what that meant, I kind of pictured a launch event and maybe I was reading.
Yeah, this is your first public reading, right?
Yeah. So keep it together.
Woo!
So yeah, I'm geeking out about that a little bit. So I'm just gonna read the first few pages of the book. So, What We Harvest, Chapter 1.
I already love it.
So, it had finally come to kill us too. The sickest part was, I'd started to believe we were invincible, that somehow the miracle of our farm might protect us. I'd seen Rainbow Fields survive crackling lightning, hail, devouring armyworms, eye-spot fungus. No matter what came from sky or earth, the field behind our house still swayed with towering, iridescent wheat. Crimson, orange, yellow, all the way to my favorite, twilight blazed violet. Each section winked with its own sheen. My whole life, the wheat had soothed me to sleep through my bedroom window with its rustling whispers, sweeter than any lullaby, or at least any my mom knew. My whole life until now, when I realized even rainbows could rot. I stood at the very back of our field. A gust of wind caught my hair, and the cascading waves of wheat flickered into a rainbow, then stilled back into a field of shivering white gold. At my feet, a sickly ooze crept from their roots. It wound up their shafts and dripped from their tips. The Quicksilver Blight, we called it, because it gleamed like molten metal. But the stench gave it away for what it really was, a greedy, hungry rot. So far, I'd only spotted 6 plants that had fallen victim. No surprise they were at the back of the field closest to forest. The blight in those woods had crept toward us for months, devouring our neighbors' crops and pets and livestock, our neighbors themselves. Every night, the grim white eyes rose like restless stars, watching us from behind the silver-slit trees. The air hung around me damp, cold for late June in Hollow's End. Spring never came this year, let alone summer. Even now, the forest loomed twisted and bare. Even from where I stood with our wheat, I could see streaks of blight glinting behind decaying patches of bark. My breath came in tiny sips. If I closed my eyes, if I stopped breathing, could I pretend even for a second none of this was real? The field was hauntingly quiet, wheat brushing against wheat. The farmhands had packed up and fled weeks ago, like most of the shop owners, like most everyone in Hollow's End except the core founding families, before the quarantine sealed us off from the rest of the world. In the distance, our farmhouse stood dark. Even Mom and Dad were out helping the Harrises fight the blight on their farm. They had no idea our wheat was bleeding into the dirt. Dad had tried to keep me plenty busy while they were away, tasking me with clearing out brambles near the shed. He and Mom didn't want me anywhere near the back of our field, so close to the infected forest. But today, they weren't here to check for crop contamination themselves. And they also weren't here to stop me. I was our last line of defense. The least I could do was act like it. Hands gloved for protection, I grabbed the nearest stalk and heaved it up from the festering soil. I could barely stand to hoist it in the air like that, its suffocating roots gasping for earth. But this plant was already good as dead. Worse, it would kill everything around it too. Even me, if I weren't wearing these gloves. As I ripped up plant after plant, the stench, syrupy like rotting fruit, crawled down my throat. I hurled the stems into the forest and spat after them. The wind answered, carrying a distant tickling laugh that squirmed into my ear. I froze, peering into the mouth of the forest for anything that might lurch out to grab me or bite me or worse. Only silent trees stared back. I must have imagined it. The blighted didn't wake until nightfall anyway, and the sun was still high in the sky, maybe 2 o'clock. I had time to deal with our infected wheat before my parents raced back from the Harrises in time to meet the town curfew at sundown, before the blighted came out. Not a lot of time, but some. Mildew stirred in my sinuses, like it was actually under the skin of my face, a part of me. A sour taste curled behind my teeth. I spat again and turned to kick the dislodged earth away from our healthy wheat. My foot slipped on a patch of glistening blight. The puddles splashed into tiny beads like mercury spilled from a broken old-fashioned thermometer, shifting oily silver dots. My stomach dropped. No, oh no, oh no. It wasn't just in the plants, it was in the soil. How deep did it already run? I needed a shovel. I threw off my contaminated gloves, kicked off my contaminated shoes, and ran. Dirt dampened my socks with every pounding step down the path to our shed. 7 generations of blood, sweat, and toil had dripped from my family into this soil. That was the price we paid to tame this patch of land, our farm, our home. The wheat was everything we had. As long as I could remember, my parents had sniped at each other over our thin savings. With my senior year looming ahead this fall, their fighting had kicked into overdrive. And that was before the blight came, before the farmers market had shut down in April. For the past several months, the blight had been eating its way through the other 3 founding farms. So now that it was our turn, I knew what it would do. It would take more than this year's harvest, more than our savings. It would take the soil itself, our entire future. Mom had never loved rainbow fields like Dad and I did. Since the blight appeared and shut everything down, she'd been asking what we were clinging on for. If she knew it had reached our wheat, the blight would fracture my family and tear us apart. Some heir I was. I kept seeing that look on Dad's face, the horror in his eyes, when he realized how badly my efforts to help us had backfired, that I was the one who'd unleashed this blight on all of Hollow's End.
pretty good.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Side note, all authors should also be theater people or have theater people do their readings. That was very good from, like, not just a personal dream fulfillment level, but, like, it was just a very nice reading.
Thank you for indulging.
Yes. So I would love, before we get too much into the book itself, to hear a bit about your path to, like, becoming a published author, because it was an interesting journey. Some real ups and downs.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I had wanted to be an author since I was, like, 10. There's a Charlotte Bronte quote that I love that is something that I'm going to butcher, but it's like, I'm just going to write because I cannot not write. That wasn't it. I butchered it. But the point is,
The gist of it was there, yeah.
the point is she just had to. It just was something that just felt like she just felt compelled to do that. And I think I've always just kind of felt compelled to write, even when I was a kid. It was like I'd finish my homework and I'd just go write these nonsense stories. So I was writing when I was a teen. I didn't start just try to seriously query. So I think I was about 27 with an earlier book, Olive McKnight, and that wasn't going well in querying. I didn't really know how to approach agents effectively.
Querying is when you approach agents and get them to represent your book, for those who are not in the industry.
So you have to pitch it very effectively in a certain way. I didn't know quite how to do that. So my big break actually came with a program called Pitch Wars, which is an author mentorship program. Through, in fact, one of my mentors is here, Laura and Ian, picked Olive for Pitch Wars 2018. So they rescued me from the slush pile and worked with me over a period of 4 months, that one was. Yeah, I mean, that was enormous for my writing and for me in general. I learned so much, and it was tough because I'd never had to write that quickly. And so it was kind of learning as I went and trying to develop the muscles as I went, and we got there. I mean, we finished it, we had our showcase. It wasn't a showcase darling. That time in querying was still going a little slowly, and at that point in time, some other folks whose Pitch Wars books hadn't taken off were talking about, well, maybe I'm going to submit again to the next one, which was in like a few months. So I was like, that's freaking impossible, okay?
So fast.
But I had nothing to lose, so I figured I needed to try something different, and I wrote What We Harvest in 7 weeks, which, I mean, Olive was like a decade. Yeah. So, and that's because of a lot of the skills that I learned and was able to practice from Laura and Ian. And yeah, so I got in. My amazing mentors, Kylie and Addie, might be here, I think. So,
I can't hello to everyone else still anyway.
Yeah, hi. And yeah, I think they really helped to bring out the heart of this book. And at that time, it was a showcase darling, and it took off. And I connected with my amazing agent and my amazing editor, and everything since there has gone remarkably smoothly.
Your path was really fast once Pitch Wars would have kicked off. Also, for those who may not know, Pitch Wars is like remarkably hard to get into as well. Like 1% of applicants make it in, something like that. So that in and of itself, and then to do that twice, is stupendous and speaks to your talent. But from there it was just like, book's happening. Yeah, let's go.
Which I can appreciate because I had seen the contrast.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Like, not that you needed to go through the bad things, but it does make you you really appreciate all the good things.
Definitely.
And now you have a book.
Yeah.
Now you did. And another one. Next year.
Yeah.
So how did you end up, we talked about how you sort of ended up writing What We Harvest, like physically, but in terms of the story itself, like, where did the story come from for you? It's very different. Olive was not a young adult to begin with.
No,
like, it was not really horror in the same way that this is. It was like funny ghosts or demons and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I'd always, I grew up reading R.L. Stein and the occasional Stephen King, and I always loved ghost stories and monster stories and things like that. And I'd always included elements of horror in my writing, but I hadn't gone all in on the genre. And actually, one thing that changed it for me was I was reading Claire Legrand's Softhill Girls, and it was actually surprisingly hopeful. Yeah. And I realized that was a path you could take with horror. And that changed for me how I thought about the genre. Yeah. Hope is actually the most important thing to me in anything I write. Yeah. So that's why I hadn't done it before. When I saw that I could, I got more interested. And I also saw the movie Midsummer, which if you all have seen, jazz hands. It's super cool because it's not set amidst this kind of darkness and shadows that a lot of horror relies on. It's all very sunshiny. There are all these flowers. It's beautiful. And I loved that contrast. Yeah. So this beautiful, hopeful horror idea is what I wanted to fall into. Yeah. And the weed itself, literally, I know it sounds
literally rainbow weed.
It sounds like such a stereotype. It actually was a dream. I had an image
I love that.
of
I've done that too. I feel like that
Yeah.
it sounds like a stereotypical thing.
It
but
does.
It happens.
It
You didn't
does.
even the book a lot.
It
Like,
does. So that just came to me as like this field of rainbow wheat, and I actually just sat down to do it as a free writing exercise. I was like literally like, all right, I'll just make myself write a paragraph. I was just trying to make myself write anything
yeah.
at that point, and it turned into a book. And
It like super turned into a book.
It did, and I think it's because it was the story that I needed.
Yeah.
Actually, at that time, I think in particular the grit of the main character and the characters in general. That was something that
Yeah, they're tough as nails.
Yeah,
These kids.
that was something I was like I wanted to relate to. So
Yeah. So we know why horror. Why YA specifically?
yeah,
Because that again was not what all of it was not YA. Really,
No.
it was like
no
adjacent, but
adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think YA is great. I mean, because I think like it's just kind of life heightened to an nth degree in a sort of way. I mean, like teens are learning so much about themselves and the world and their place in the world, and they're asking these huge questions. They're feeling these huge feelings, and I also just like I can't state it enough, like, just how much respect I have, especially for like this generation of teenagers as well, because the stuff that they have already had to go through, it's just overwhelming. So
yeah, we were just like Tamagotchiing.
I know.
And they're like the world's melting.
Right.
So,
It really is. So for me, it's like if anything that I write can help them process
yeah.
anything about the world a little better, then that genuinely is an honor.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a great
There's a lot
job.
going on.
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Well, I feel like historically, like teens, even if not YA specifically, but like seeing horror through the eyes of teens is a very, especially like horror films, you know,
Yeah.
like slasher films, something like that. Like it's such a specific way of entering
It's true.
the world, partially because you do have all those like big emotions and big firsts and things like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's a cool history of it. Plus, especially when you want to write like hopeful horror, I feel like YA is a very clearly defined path for that.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Also, just fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. So tell me, I want to hear more about Ren, our main grit girl, as it were.
Great girl.
Yeah.
Um,
She's gritty as gravel, our Ren.
She is. She sure is. Yeah, I'd say like that's kind of her main quality in many ways. Is just in other ways, like some readers have talked about this online, and I love it because I'm like, yeah, you see Ren, you get her. She's not particularly remarkable in necessarily all these other ways, but where she is absolutely remarkable is this grit, this drive to she just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
She has every reason to give up about 1 million times in this book, and she chooses time and time again not to, and I love that about her. Yeah, she's only 16. This is a lot. So
Yeah. No, I love some of the fan art, like the character cards.
yeah,
If you order the book, you get character cards. Just if you get it today, you still have those too. But like, she's drawn really young in that fan art. Like you don't think because when you I feel like when you read YA, at least for me, I I picture them as teenagers, but at least physically, it's kind of picturing like people. You know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about like a kid on the street, but she's so young and she's got like overalls on. Oh my god, this is a child.
Yeah.
And she's going through so much.
yeah.
She's not stopping, and it really is like I can see what you mean about like wanting to have that in like these days to draw on because it's nice to have an example of somebody who like that just like does not stop.
Yep.
She's like an energizer bunny of horror.
Yeah.
She just keeps going. Yeah. I'll rewrite that down, and they can put it on the cover of the paperback.
I love that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Sincerely, Amanda Quain, somebody who's not qualified to talk about horror at all. Yeah. So we have Ren.
Yeah.
But now, we have to talk about Ren and Derek. Are my sweet, sweet boy. I just want to send him cookies and help him.
I know.
Just make sure he takes a nap,
I know.
maybe.
Yeah.
God, all these kids need a nap.
They
So
do.
bad.
Derek especially needs a nap.
Yeah.
So Ren and Derek, basically this love story that's in here, it's this, the guy from the neighboring farm. And we're dealing with kind of these core founding families of House End that I talked about a little in here. So you saw Ren's farm, Rainbow Fields. And Derek's got this farm of glowing ghost melons, they call them. And he's right down the way. He's been Ren's best friend growing up, and they kind of fell in love somewhere around that 12-year-old mark.
Classic
and-
time to fall in love.
Classic. But they had only started dating actually for about 3 months, I think it was, before the blight hits and things get ruined for a variety of reasons that this gets into. So when we start, they're actually exes. And Ren is in a position where when she finds this blight on the farm, there's there's no one else to call, so she has to call Derek, who she has not been speaking to.
You hate when that happens.
At all. It had to be the ex.
It has to be.
And for traumatic reasons. So
It's also only like there's 4 families in this town.
yeah, there's not
Only so many.
a ton of people to choose from. But yeah, so I mean, I love that tension that exes to lovers can bring. Although they actually just kept coming out surprisingly sweet. Like I thought they'd be
They're so
smart
nice
here.
to each other.
I know. It's just because
Derek can't be mean.
yeah, he came out kind of adorable, and I didn't want to.
And Ren wants to be mean, but she can't. Not to
No,
Derek.
like no one can. I think. Yeah.
Even like the Blight zombies, I feel like emotionally when they get to Derek, they're like,
Aww.
So why you liked playing with that like sort of exes to lovers, like second chance thing? What about that like boy next? It's fine, it's just giveaway prizes. That like boy next door feeling, like how was that to play in?
Yeah, I mean,
boy next farm.
yeah, I mean, well, it ties into this idea of like Ren, had this clear picture or thought she did of what her life growing up would look like, and that was like marrying Derek. He's gonna come help her on her farm, and they're gonna have these kids they talked about, and all her vision for the future was very much tied into Derek, and that vision has already been destroyed by the blight when this starts. And thematically, it was important that they be exes to lovers because Ren also needs to realize that broken things don't always just get more broken.
Yeah.
That they actually can get fixed. And Derek is very instrumental in bringing about that hope. So, just for every reason, we had to go with exes to lovers.
Yeah. One thing that plays well is that, like, because you talk about, like, that sort of idyllic, like, small town life. And, like, just that idea of, like, this is the boy I've known since I was, like, born. We're going to get married, and our farms are going to combine. We're going to have kids.
Right.
Like, I remember my, like, across the street neighbor, my, like, boy best friend when I was, like, 5. We were like, okay, we're going to get married. And we're going to open a pizza place down the street from where we live.
Oh, my God.
Like, it's such a childlike innocence that they come into this with.
Yeah.
But it's, boy, it gets Quicksilver Blight real bad.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Like most things in this book.
That stuff gets everywhere. It is very hard to get out. Although, side note, I will say, you touched on it a bit in there, which is like, oh, I have my gloves on, I'll be safe. It's so funny because we were talking, obviously, we're coming up from about 2 years since, you guys know about like the global pandemic, right? We've all noticed. Yeah, where like the world broke. And it's actually 2 years ago tomorrow that we closed the store, but 2 years ago yesterday we celebrated Pi Day here.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, we were like, there's like 50 people in here, but we were all wearing gloves, and we're like, so we're fine. And that's in the same way. This book is also a sort of a metaphor for you should be wearing a mask when you deal with things like the blights or pandemics or any sort of gloves will not necessarily help you.
No
spoilers for sort of 3 paragraphs after where we stopped. Masks are great.
Yep.
So I just like really enjoyed it. Like obviously you didn't write this like thinking that in mind, but just like, hey, just another lecture bonus. Wear your mask.
Yep.
Can you talk a bit about like where because like you talk about like the ghost melons or like my favorite are the giant dogs with horses.
Oh yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But, like where are the ideas for this? The Rainbow Week even a dream. Where did everything else come from?
So let's see.
And what's our 4th farm again?
Our 4th farm is the Murphy farm. It's already been decimated. That's
Right.
why.
Yeah.
So that one's the one that has these golden yams that kind of warm you from the inside.
But they're done.
They're super dead.
Just gone.
And they have gold flecks in the skin. They were cool before.
They're good yams, but
They were. So that's that farm. The ghost melon farm, I was trying to think about miracles in nature and heightening those. And actually, my friend Emily, who's back there, Emily, who I waved to give him.
Hi, Emily.
Putting you on the spot there, Emily. Emily's a visual genius, and I consult with her on many visuals in the book. And you brought up melon blossoms, right? The moonflowers, that glow in the dark. And I thought that's the perfect miracle in nature to heighten. So that's where the ghost melons kind of came from. And the other farm, the animals, the Harrises, they've got just big old dogs. They've got dogs, they've got horses that have these brilliant auburn coats, and are just strong and fast and powerful. I love animals. We needed an animal farm. I mean, that's just mandatory.
Yeah.
So
plus, you use animals many times. You need really good horses to escape. Yeah. And to sort of just run around between zombie hordes here.
It becomes very relevant.
It's very helpful for that. So one of the themes we really play with in What We Harvest, you really play with. I wasn't involved in that part.
You talked about something.
I was involved in some very gentle tweakings of things. But you talk a lot about the idea of hubris, like humanity not being able to leave well enough alone, because the blight that Ren and the gang experienced didn't come from nothing. It we hinted at that a little bit at the end of your reading. Why did you want to explore that topic?
Well,
Besides, like, the world.
that's the reason. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Yeah, I think it's relevant. I mean, I think, you know, even when we think about eco horror right now with everything going on with climate change, I just think, yeah, unfortunately, eco horror is incredibly relevant. I think especially for teens who are going to keep growing into this world, that's terrifying. And it's something that we've done to ourselves. And that's another theme in this book is kind of past sins that are very much still in the present. But that's one of them, you know, and
One of several.
One of several. Also racism, equity, a lot more that could come to mind, you know. It's here because it's the world right now. I think I can't get that out of my head when I'm writing.
Yeah. So you also, I mean, I touched on this a little bit, but you wrote Wobbly Horrors before COVID.
Yep.
But it was part of your editing process. And a lot of things you've been experiencing, like I mentioned, masks, but like quarantine, fear of the people around you, those all come up in What We Harvest. So how much of that sort of ongoing world situation did you pull for the book? And was it something you like leaned into or something you tried to pull away from when you were editing?
So, I mean, here's a super creepy thing, which is that the vast majority of all of this was already in place from the first draft, which was written in summer 2019.
Uh-oh.
So it had nothing to do. So yeah, by the time I was.
So we should keep a look at your draft for book 2 to sort of get a sense of what's coming.
Oh my God, I hope not. Anyone who's read that is like. Just don't put on the mask. So yeah, don't wear masks.
Well, not that mask. Wear some masks, but not
Right,
not
these
not
masks.
for book 2 masks.
Yeah.
You'll see when you're back here again next year.
But yeah, no. Wow, what was the question? Masks.
Like how much did you pull in? How much
Yeah.
did you avoid?
Got it. Yes.
This is what all of our like editing calls are like too. We just tangent.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah, no, so most of it was in place. The quarantine, this ineffective government response that leaves the town feeling very helpless and forgotten. That was all there. What I took from COVID though were some of the day-to-day details of what it actually feels like. You know, when the world around you, it's all these little changes.
Yeah. If you don't think about it, if you're like planning ahead of time, you'd have no idea. Yeah.
And they just add up to a routine that we just don't even recognize anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing how those stacked up, like for instance, in our apartment complex, they would have these window signs in the lobby, you know, where they would keep having like different regulations. They keep crossing it out and writing new things on there in Sharpie. And I actually took inspiration from that for a line about Main Street in this book when they're going down the street and seeing all these like updates to
Just like
yeah, to all the different kinds of things. And the other thing that really hit me was remote learning. I think it was already mentioned that the quarantine cut Ren and Derek off from school, which is across the bridge in a different town, Meadowbrook. But this made me really appreciate, honestly, how disastrous that would have been for them. They're having to take these finals online, and Hollow's End is terrible.
It's like these like farms, these ancient farms are like the best remote learning scenario.
No, it's like this remote peninsula. It's a terrible place for remote learning. So it made me appreciate.
That should have been your 5th farm, the Wi-Fi farm.
That would have made things a lot better.
That would have helped with
that. Yeah. So I think just appreciating how isolated, honestly, all of the teens would be in this book. Living through COVID helped make that feel realer to me, and I hope translates to feeling a little realer in here. But it is a very different disease.
Yes.
And I'm super grateful for all those genre elements that I do think enforces some distance between this and COVID, so that hopefully people who are trying to process feelings about the pandemic can do it here in a safer space.
Yeah, it does not, I mean, it in no way presents or acts like COVID, what we're experiencing.
No.
It's a mercury-fueled zombie blight.
Right.
So it's like 15% different. At least not the current variants. So another important thing it's fine. Another important theme What We Harvest is the idea of legacy.
Yeah.
So Ren's family is one of the 4 founding families in the town, which I love those little world building details. It feels so cool and grand and small town in like a very specific Americana way that I love. And their legacy rules over the entire community, even if that legacy and their rule of the community is not as picture perfect as perhaps they would lead us to believe, or we're led to believe near the beginning of the book. By the time we meet Ren, there aren't that many members of the families left to carry on the legacy, which is, again, super interesting, even though it's one that Ren is absolutely determined to be a part of. Why did you want to explore that sort of idea?
Again, the world.
Yeah. Just assume the world is sort of part 1 for all these answers.
It is. It's tying into kind of what we talked about a bit earlier. So, I mean, first of all, for Ren, I mean, this is everything that she's this is her family, this is her home. She loves the idea of owning this farm as well and carrying on these traditions and these legacies, and that's where she's starting. So it's very painful for her to learn over the course of this book that sometimes these legacies are built on those
Not
past
so good.
sins that we talked about. There's a line in here, what good is a legacy if it's always been a lie?
It's like Hamilton.
It's one of the big themes in what we harvest is kind of asking who has been paying for our American dream.
Yeah.
And yeah, what does that cost? What is that worth? Is there a way to make just a better future? Honestly, so the legacy stuff, it all ties into that for me. This idea of examining her history and this kind of individual and societal responsibility,
Right.
which is something I do.
Duality of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I love within that too, like it comes back also to what I was talking about with like sort of Ren's like she is so tough and she's so strong, but that like commitment to her childlike dreams of like half the other founders' kids have just like left town.
Yeah.
Like Derek and Derek's sister are really the only ones who are still here. The rest of the farms are gonna be like the legacy of them is unclear.
The Harrises are. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and perhaps were there not a horrific blight, they would have sorted something out. But like the legacy still is not a direct lineage. Like she and Derek are both so clean to that idea of like this is the dream.
Yes, definitely.
And so it shatters for them more, which is cool. I mean, you want to see your horror like main characters be shattered a little bit.
Yeah.
She gets better.
So you gotta learn what to do.
Yeah, exactly. But we have to talk about Teddy.
Oh yes, Teddy.
We must talk about Teddy. So Teddy is one of the Harris's dogs. He's the best one.
Yeah. Yes.
And I love him. Tell us everything about him.
So Teddy is a lady.
Oh, damn.
That's one thing about Teddy.
Okay, well, in fan fiction, I'm worried about your book. Teddy will be a boy.
That's fair. You have to
That's
you
fair.
do. But yeah, so Teddy is Ren's pup. And yes, she's a Harris dog, and she's the best Harris dog. So yeah,
They're all great dogs. But Teddy, well, some of them are murderous, but they're all great dogs in their hearts. Teddy is the best one.
Right. So basically, Ren got Teddy as a puppy and had raised her. Teddy is now 7, and when the book begins, Teddy is already blighted. So we meet Teddy as she has come back to the house, as she does most nights, and hangs out on the porch outside of the window, and Ren feeds her some of this, they call it unicorn braid, this bread they make out of the iridescent wheat at her farm, because it's supposed to, in theory, have healing properties. So Ren keeps giving Teddy this bread each night when she comes back. So Teddy, she just keeps coming back, better and for worse, and she has definitely been a fan favorite.
Yeah. I love Ren, I love Derek, I love all the other characters. Yeah. If this book was only about Teddy, I would still love it very much.
That's fair. That's fair. And I think, a lot of this comes from, I ran a dog walking business for many years. Hey, Katie. I co-ran Katie. And
so we expect another dog-based book from Katie.
Yeah, that's right. And, a lot of that love that I had for all those pups. Teddy isn't any of them specifically, but she's kind of just a love song to them. I am in permanent dog withdrawal now, so it was very fun for me to write Teddy into this world.
Are there animals in your next project besides the horrifying ones?
There are a lot of bugs.
Yeah, that's not what I meant. Unless the bugs are named and they have a leash, I don't care.
Yeah, no.
Okay, book 3.
Yeah.
You need like a haunted cat.
Well,
I mean, I know you own a haunted cat,
have
but
one. Yep.
Yeah. But you need a literary haunted cat.
Yeah, I mean, well, hopefully, if all it pans out down the line.
That's
then
true.
It already has a haunted cat. So.
Okay, here's the thing, everyone. You need to buy as many copies of this book as I know that this is not the group I need to talk to because I know you've all done this, but the more books we buy of Ann's, the more likely we can get more haunted and horrifying animals into the world.
That's
which
okay.
we all need.
Good for that. Yeah.
I just need to add, your online audience also has a lot of love for Teddy.
Yes! The online audience knows what's up.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, online audience. You're all my best friends now. So let's talk about writing again. What does your process look like?
Well, so it's funny because What We Harvest actually completely changed my process.
Yeah, that's like a whole new separate. It's like, what if I took a decade to write a book? Or what if I did it in a month and a half?
Right. So, before I really, I struggled a lot more with perfectionism and with trying to figure out just kind of I don't know, I was very in it, you know, and I spent a lot of time staring at the screen and like, you know, waiting for the right words to come. And I think actually 2/3 of the way through Pitch Wars, when I was writing part 3 of Olive, that's when the muscle started to kick in and I started to get faster. And I started to kind of be able to write ahead of my own brain in a certain way. And I wanted to lean into that. So this book, I was going with this free writing kind of exercise that is recommended in The Artist's Way by, I'm blanking on her name. Julie Cameron.
We definitely, we always sell it here, so it might be in the store at the moment. Not we can order it.
Perfect. Yeah, well, one thing she talks about is this idea of morning pages, where in the morning you get up and you write faster than you can think. You just keep writing. You just go. Don't judge anything you're writing. Just put it all down. And I was doing that. And I just brought that exact method to writing this book. So that's what happened. When I was doing this, it was a free writing exercise. I mean, I was actually trying to surprise myself the whole way through and succeeded. I mean, to the point where, like, you know, in that reading I just did, you know, when Ren talks about hearing a laugh somewhere, when I first wrote that, I was like, I don't know what that's about.
Yep.
You know,
we're gonna find out together.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, and you know, I got through like chapter 4 or 5 because before I was like, you know, in the original draft, like, I need to figure out what the blight actually is now. You know, and like since then, of course, I've edited and used the front of my brain a lot.
Sure.
More, so you guys are not getting the version that made less sense. But that process is actually what I've adopted. That's what I do now.
Yeah.
It's completely changed things for me. I actually love it. It's made the books more dreamlike. I think in a way it's made them less
So like for horror
predictable.
particularly, that's what you want, that lack of predictability a little bit.
Yeah. So writing with the back of my brain, that's what I do now.
And then the front of your brain gets to deal with that in editing.
And the front of my brain hates that part.
Yeah. So I guess you would say that this, in a way, this my question is, would this come easy? You said this came easier to you than other books.
Yeah.
And like yes, but also then editing.
Right. I mean,
But
yes,
still easier than like a decade of
definitely.
perfectionist aiming. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think this was the book where I learned to trust myself.
Yeah.
And so actually, even editing, honestly, went better for this book. I mean, I don't know. It was the first thing I'd written from scratch in like this 10-year process, and I had all these new tools from Laura and Ian in particular. And imagery was actually something I wanted to work on because I was not as great at that in Olive. So that's why I put imagery, you know, face forward, atmosphere,
There's
face forward in this
heck of
book.
a lot of atmosphere and imagery in this one.
So I think people might be surprised if they only know me through this book to know those were actually my weaknesses.
Yeah.
So
that would not be. I mean, my book that I'm working on now is like got some ghost stuff, and I have to be like, hey Ann, if you could just read this and just write down everywhere you think I should have added imagery, that would have been really helpful for me. And you did it. It was great. You did a great job. We sold it, so it worked out well. But so let's talk horror. Let's talk horror surface level because you know the baby about horror.
Okay. Yep.
When I edit Ann's books, she very helpfully highlights any areas which things would be too much for me, and I'm allowed to skip those. I need to. I did read all of them.
You did.
But I didn't have to, and I appreciate that. We're gonna see for book 2 where that might be worse for me.
Right.
But like, who are some of your favorite horror writers? Favorite horror trope? Like, what drew you into horror specifically?
Okay.
So
So
general horror.
just horror at all.
Just shout the word horror.
All right. I love a lot of things about horror. One of the things I love is the thing I already talked about, this idea of persistence. I think that's one of the most amazing things about humans, and I think horror showcases that in a way that more so than a lot of genres. I think, and I think, you know, the darkness of horror can throw the light into sharper relief. I think horror makes us appreciate what we actually have because it shows us how much we'd hate for that to be taken away. So I think horror does a lot of very interesting things for us, and I think it actually is a great genre for building hope. So that's horror. Authors. Okay, some adult authors that I love: Grady Hendrix, A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and also my best friend's Exorcism. Love it. Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia.
That feels right. That
Amazing.
tracks between you and this.
Yep, we both like mold. Let's see. Me too. I also
like mold in very specific ways.
We do. And recently, of course, classic, but Shirley Jackson. I read like the whole lottery in school, but I hadn't read one of her full books, and I just read We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Loved it. am obsessed with her now. So those are some adult horror authors I think are amazing. YA, you know, for folks who are like the kind of spooky atmospheric feels, maybe less of the intense gore, etc.
Not all of them though. Some of these YA horrors.
I know. Well, here are a few. So, you know, like Ann Fraistat, I think is great for that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And Small Favors is like, I think, pretty similar to this in terms of that kind of small town horror vibes and whatnot. So that's a great one. Bad Witch Burning is really cool. It's got great kind of social commentary baked into it. It's like it's about a necromancer who's having to do it because she needs the money, and it has these terrible side effects. It's super cool. And let's see, I mean, I could go on all day. Alison Saff, Erica Waters, Courtney Gould.
There's great options for YA
Alexis
horror,
Henderson. Yeah, tons of those are some names.
Yeah, great job. You named some people.
I did.
I think that was interesting when you talk about like, because you talked about how like you liked how read out the script because you wanted to see that because you felt like you needed it, like how you horrors on this journey. I feel like you don't give yourself enough credit for like the grit that you have, because like the journey of like you put 10 years into another book, had to kind of put that book away, which we've all done it.
Yeah.
It's a terrible situation, like feelings wise.
Yeah.
It does not feel good even when you know it's the right decision. And then like crushed this, and now you are like the final girl of publishing.
That's very generous.
You are one of a group of final girls of publishing. But like I feel like it's interesting that you can like look to horror for this journey when you've gone on it yourself.
Yeah.
Just like with much less terror.
Yeah, well that's absolutely.
I mean, it's emotional terror, but less mold.
Actually, fun tidbit about the emotional journey and things that I was going through.
Yeah.
When I was writing this book, I wrote Ren's low point immediately after getting one of the toughest rejections for Olive.
Fun.
An agent I had been really excited about who had a full, and I got rejected, and I was so upset and immediately was like, all right, time to write Ren's low point.
So, you know who could also be sad? My character.
Exactly. I was like, I can do something with this. And I think that's the thing. I think readers know what's real, and I really did try to write my real emotions into this book.
Yeah.
So it does reflect a lot of my journey, actually, just through extremely heavy metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's why we read and write horror, right? It's that you can explore our own real life journeys through horrifying metaphors. Just rough metaphors sometimes. There was like a couple passages. So I read this book initially, I think a year, half, a while back, and then reread it a couple weeks ago in preparation for this. And I just texted Anne and be like, hey, did I just purposefully ignore some of the really scary stuff in this to protect my own brain? Because this is some of this is, I mean, it's so beautiful and so good. It's also very scary.
I didn't highlight that one.
That's true. Maybe that was it. Yeah. So I do want to make sure we have time for questions, both here and in the audience. But if you could talk first a little bit about what you have coming up next.
Yes. Okay. We kind of referenced it in probably alarming ways, but I'm actually really excited about book 2. So it's another standalone. It's not the same, but it's another YA supernatural thriller horror. And that one, it deals with mental health themes, but through the backdrop of a haunted house. And it's a mental health recovery story, actually. So again, kind of finding that hope in very unexpected places. And it's, you know, because it was also written in this sort of dreamlike way, it's got these sorts of elements. You know, it's got these masks and stained glass windows that are very mysterious. It's got, you know, glass beetles and lace butterflies on the property, these blue roses that grow all over everything. So again, trying to play with this beautiful horror. I'm excited about it. I can't say too much yet, so I'm hoping I can talk about that more soon.
Yeah, but next year sometime, look for that.
Yep.
So we want to take, Amber, how are we doing on audience questions online? Anything you want to pull while these guys?
I don't think there are any questions right now, but did you guys have a raffle?
Yes, Anne, would you like to describe it? Or do you want me to describe it?
So we are going to do a raffle both here and online. So online we've got the prize of a $25 certificate to Fantastic One More Page Books.
And we ship everywhere, so you're good.
Yeah, you got somebody on from Denmark, so.
We ship to Denmark.
Probably Astrid.
Yeah, great. So we'll choose the winner that randomly from a question online.
Yeah, so anyone who has a question online, you will be entered for that raffle. So if you're the only one, you get it.
Yeah, you got a great shot. And then we'll also
there are a lot of comments. There's just not a lot of questions.
That's fair. And then we'll also do the same thing here. Yes.
If you were just going to open it up in general.
Oh, right. We already got the tickets, so you should still ask
you guys already
questions,
came here in person.
it. And then we're also, in addition to the gift card we are raffling off, we're giving away some cool tote bags because this is a bookstore. If you leave without a tote bag, what are you doing? But does anyone have any questions for Anne?
So I know writers often talk about having to kill their darlings, and like those moments in books or plays or whatever you work on that you love, but it's not working, it has to go. Were there any darlings in this book that you wish could have made it in, but we don't get to see because they have to go?
And I'm just gonna repeat the question for people online, so it's kind of hard to hear. But the question was about, did Anne have to kill any of her darlings in this book? She kills a lot of things.
Yeah. It's a great question. Yeah, I think so. That was actually more trouble that I had with the book before this, which I think is part of why I had trouble moving forward with that book. I wrote this one to be very deliberately flexible in a sort of way because I wrote it so quickly. It was just more malleable in my head. I didn't have time to get as attached to everything. So I'm trying to think now if there's anything that I love that didn't make it in. I mean, honestly, the only thing I remember telling my Pitch Wars mentors before they chose me, they asked some questions, and one of the questions they asked was, "Is there anything you won't change in this book?" And I said the one thing that's really important to me is the hope in the book. I don't want to take that out. Other than that, I can't believe you would have given up Teddy. Let's talk. Well, they clearly were not going to take.
Okay, that's fair. Teddy was wrong. Yeah, that's true.
Unlike Ted. Yeah. Other than that, I think remarkably, and this is probably the only time I'm going to say this, I think the things that I loved about this book made it all the way into this book.
Good job, Lola.
Yeah.
Other questions / Amber, anything coming in? There's often a delay too of a couple minutes on there. Yes.
You also write plays, so how would you compare writing plays to writing novels?
Oh yes, sorry. I instantly forgot. So the question was, Anne also writes plays, and how do you compare writing plays to writing novels?
Yeah. I would say, I love writing dialogue.
Which is shows, by the way, an excellent dialogue in here.
Oh, thank you. And I think, with plays, they can really fly out quickly because I can just write dialogue and boom, boom, boom. This one, I actually was challenging myself to use less dialogue in my books because I felt like they had been dialogue heavy before. I love my banter.
Banter's amazing.
So I deliberately wrote the first book. I was challenging myself to see how long I could go without the first line of dialogue that's spoken aloud.
I like that.
It takes Ren a long time to talk in this opening section, and I wanted her alone for that reason because I wanted to force myself to develop everything around her before I let the characters start talking.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the main difference. I can't just totally lean into the dialogue the way that I want to. If we talk about killing darlings, that's usually what I have to cut.
Fair.
It's dialogue. Yeah, that's definitely one of the main differences.
Amber.
I do have a question for online. I'm going to just do this so you can hear me.
Thank you.
From Kylie. And how did you come up with some of the scary and more gruesome bits of imagery in the book? You're such a soft cinnamon roll of a person. You said, "Oh snap! What is wrong with you?"
Can you pop that on the screen for the people online too? Thank you.
Oh, bless you, Kylie. Kylie is one of my mentors.
Kylie is the one who Teddy is dedicated to.
That is correct. Yes.
I'm gonna fight you for the ghost cat, Kylie.
Yeah. Good question. It's weird because I actually didn't really like body horror. Used to be like my least favorite part of horror. Actually, when I watch it, it still is. And when I read it, I still flinch back from it a lot. I think when I'm writing it, I know it's going to happen, and I know how far it's going to go, and I know when it's going to stop. So it doesn't bother me as much. And I think I was able to think of it actually in that lens of beautiful horror in a way, like getting interested in like the language itself.
Yeah.
And what that was kind of evoking. I mean, it's not pretty.
But it's very delicate in the way that it destroys.
Yeah, and and the blight, some of the symptoms are like silver that grows up from your nail beds and things like that. It's got this kind of strange, gruesome beauty to it.
Yeah. It's got like an Instagram filter with a horror almost, like sort of that like eerie, foggy horror.
Yeah, it does. Other than that, I don't know. I guess my unconscious is a monster. My dreams are weird. Now I have an outlet for it. So there you go. That's probably what it is, Kylie.
I do feel like you're right though. It's like harder to jump scare yourself.
Yeah,
not impossible, but much more challenging than when you're reading it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you given up acting?
Has she given up acting?
I didn't recognize you with the mask. For the moment, I probably have. I think I think they're all just storytelling methods for me. And I think it's also strange because a lot of people knew me more through the theater world and through the playwriting world and whatnot. And this is actually, it supersedes all of that. I loved writing before I loved any of those things. It was just so hard to make this happen in any real world way. I looked to tell stories in other ways, and I got so much out of my time in theater, mostly this, tremendous community. So I'm really grateful for it. Never say never. But for now, and this is very time consuming.
You need your nights and weekends to work on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I've always joked that, because I come from theater as well, that deciding between doing theater and doing writing, I chose the more stable job of being an actor.
Yeah. It's all pretty brutal.
It's all rough in different ways.
Yeah.
But at least with this one, you don't have to put on makeup or clothes.
Well,
Not pajamas. Well, now, but this is one day out of 2 years. Other questions? Yes, Amanda.
If I could ask a second. So in your mind, if this were ever the option for a movie, which horror director would you want to take it?
Amanda with a good question. So the question was, if this was the option for a movie, I'll just say, when's this option for a movie? What horror director do you want to sink their claws into it?
Oh, dream big.
Yeah.
Yes.
Del Toro.
Yeah, that feels right. The
Let's
mold.
go for it.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
mold.
Yeah. Do you have a fan cast for any of your characters?
Not really.
I know it's hard when they're teens because it's
Yeah.
the idea that anyone you pick now could possibly be an eligible actor by the time a book came out into a movie.
It's never gonna work
It would
out.
never be possible.
I will say that for whatever reason, so Ren, I think, looks to me like the actor who plays Nancy in Stranger Things. Because Ren is very small and very delicate, and that's very at odds with what she goes through and how she behaves, and so I love that. So when I saw her, I was like, oh, I think that looks like Ren to me.
Yeah.
But not even acting wise, just looks
Just
wise.
not a dissimilar type of horror Stranger Things.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
I know I'm
also
more
great.
nostalgic than this is in a different way, but
Fantastic.
not dissimilar.
Yeah.
Great question. Anyone else? Amber, how are we doing online?
There's lots of comments, which I'll make sure you can
Sure.
read tonight.
Kylie, you're killing it in the raffle so
I know,
far.
Kylie.
Yes, Lauren.
There have been a couple comments of, I was never a horror fan until I read this.
I'm telling you, gateway horror.
This is a gateway book into horror. It has helped a lot of people.
Although I'm gonna stand in the gate. I'm gonna stay in the gateway.
Yeah,
and do
you
it. Yes, Lauren.
If you could have a dinner with a character from What We Harvest, who would it be and why?
If you could have dinner with a character from What We Harvest, who and why? Besides Teddy.
Yes. My favorite character in this is Claudette. Actually,
yes.
I love her. She's the kind of rough and tough older sister of Derek, the love interest. I don't know. She was just fun to write. She's just snarky as hell, and snarky characters who have that secret kind of heart of gold in everything I write are always my favorite.
It's an Ann type.
It's an Ann type for sure. So probably her. I don't know if we get along, but I'd still do it. Yep.
I think we are just at around 8 o'clock, and I do want to make sure we have time for all of your adoring fans to get their books signed.
Yes.
But do you have anything you want? So congratulations to Kylie for winning the raffle online. And then we can draw the raffle in store.
We should do that. Yes.
Amber, do we have the basket? I can go grab it.
Yes.
Here, Stand. Thank you, Sam. Oh, I get to, so we'll draw for the 3 bags, and then we'll finish up on the gift card.
Yeah. Another $25 gift card in store is the final prize. So this is for a tote bag.
For a
Do you wanna
tote
show off the-
Yeah, so it says on one side, I read YA. And then on the other side, Anne hates this. It says, be true to your shelf.
Do I hate it? The front's nice.
Yeah, just hold it like this, and no one will know.
Okay, so that's one of these.
Everyone has their raffle tickets. No one's lost them yet.
Yes.
If you've lost them, we're not going to give you another one.
Okay. All right. Okay, we've got 0, 4, 4, 8,
Yay!
Yay! Now.
Sam, can I have you back? Can you run tote bags for me? To the young woman who's standing. With a very cool headband, by the way. Great work. All right, next one.
Tote bag number 2.
It's the same tote bag again. The same bags. But you can turn this one inside out. It's something different. It's black inside.
Okay, and this one is 044826. Anyone
It
know?
has to be somebody.
Okay, don't do it again.
Last 3 are 826. Sam, did you hide raffle tickets again?
Maybe I did.
It was the Blight.
Ghost winner. All right. Sorry, Ghost.
We can give him a ghost tote bag.
Okay, I guess the front's always the same. The last 3 digits
Yes.
are 839.
Yay!
And number 3. 845.
Yay! Thank you, Sam. You can stay put for the And then the final one for the gift card.
Yes, which is right here.
Use for anything in store or online. We do sell wine and chocolate as well as the books.
Again, chocolate's very good.
It's very good. As is the wine.
As are the books.
As is the books. we got it all.
Okay, grand prize winner. 838.
Congratulations. Sam, will you please?
This is magic.
Thank you all. So now that we've raffled, is there anything? I'll get this out of there. Okay, I work here. I'm on glitter. Is there anything else you want to say before we conclude?
Thank you guys. I mean, when I started this, it was just me and my laptop. And it has been, so many people since then, I mean, who have been involved in this, and I listed them all, tagged them all in all my posts online, but, I have an incredible team with both my agency, Macintosh and Otis, and Delacorte Press, and all the folks there have been fantastic. And the community around me in general, pitch wars and the 22-day views, and you were my friend already, and and just all of you guys here as well. It really means so much. Like, I remember thinking at my wedding with Grant, actually, like how just honored we were to have such a fantastic community out there supporting us, and that was a really moving part of the wedding. And I feel the same about this book launch. Like, it was.
Just don't look me in the eyes. It's fine.
It's really moving for me. All of you here, all of you online, everyone has been leaving me these messages all day. I can't tell you how much that means. So